lots of organizations overcomplicate this and think there's, some magic formula to getting people to recycle more. Really, it's just simple as simple communication and convenience.
Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast, where we bring you interviews with industry leaders, climate champions, sustainability practitioners, EHS and hazmat professionals making an impact in their businesses today. Each leader solving complex challenges and delivering solutions within their areas of expertise. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and thanks for joining us today. Before we jump in, make sure to follow us on your devices and visit my website at www.seankgrady.com and sign up for our newsletter and email announcements. Now let's get started. Welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Grady, and today's guest is David Laws. David is the executive director of Interchange 360, and he's here to help us understand what the petroleum industry is doing around recycling, EPR, and developing programs to help them recycle more of their plastic and other waste products. So, David, welcome to the show.
Sean, thanks for having me on.
Just for the listeners' benefit here, this is the third time we've actually tried to conduct this interview. We had two previous stints of recording efforts that the Wi-Fi and technology just did not work for us. We tried real hard, but it didn't work. But thank goodness today is looking like it's going to be just fine.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, technology.
yeah, exactly. So, well, what's interesting is I think to set the stage a bit here too is like every year millions of plastic, motor oil, and antifreeze jugs end up in the exact same place, not the blue bins, but the landfill. And they threaten the environment with toxic chemical residues. For decades, the petroleum industry has operated a linear track of make the product, sell the fluids, and discard the package. But some rules of the game have shifted, and they've been shifting fast. And across the United States, sweeping extended producer responsibility laws are forcing brands to take financial and physical responsibility of their waste. And in a move that almost no one saw coming, 5 of the largest, biggest global oil rivals, BP, Chevron, Exxon, Shell, Valvoline, put their competition aside, and now they've joined forces in a brand new industry-leading powerhouse design to solve the crisis once and for all. And that's where Interchange 360 comes into play. They're the vehicle that is helping them accomplish this goal, helping fund their organization to do this. And so we're here to talk with David and shed some light on this. So David, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks. It's really cool when you say it like that, but it's been a journey and we're 2 years old now. And, it seems like a long time since we brought those big 5 companies together. It was a really interesting time, but, they saw the need for this and they saw the need to work together to solve this problem. So,
Yep.
A lot of credit goes towards the individuals in those companies for making this decision.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, when I look at this and we just kind of were introduced by a friend of a friend type thing. And so we started talking and it was interesting to talk with you previously about what you guys are doing. But, you've spent years building a successful model with interchange recycling in Canada. And how did you get these 5 biggest oil giants to come together, sit down at the same table, and unify on this common mission? What was the exact tipping point that made global rivals like BP, Chevron, Shell, all those guys decide to collectively fund Interchange 360?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
In the United States.
Yeah, it speaks back to the origin. So it wasn't us, it was them. And they saw the need for this globally, internationally, state by state. They saw that putting single-use packaging on the marketplace was not going to be acceptable like it was in the past. And the best way to solve this, so they started searching around to find what is the best model, what's the best way to solve this. They looked north to Canada, where many of those same companies are paying into the programs in Canada right now. And they looked at British Columbia and saw the fantastic results we have in British Columbia. We have really high collection rates, and our fees are reasonable, we think, and we have strong results. And so they looked at us and they said, "Hey, can you take your knowledge and skills and bring your team and come down to the U.S. and maybe work state by state? But let's start out a national organization and inch our way towards solving the same problem.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I guess that would be pretty flattering for them to come to you too. It's like, oh my gosh, you want us to do this? This is great.
It certainly was. It certainly was. Yeah. So but it was nice to have, and I think over the 2 years we've helped start up LPMA Interchange 360. We've brought a lot of experience. We've brought a lot of processes and procedures, and a lot of existing relationships. When you run a successful program in Canada, you often get invited to speak at many events in the U.S. I've been doing that for a while, and had many good relationships, and that really helped jumpstart the initiative of Interchange 360. And that's what these companies wanted. They didn't want to start from scratch. They looked at the business case of starting from scratch versus use the same organization that they're using. Same company names pay into the Canadian program, as I mentioned. So why not take all that knowledge they've already paid for and all that experience and procedures and apply it in the U.S.? It's not that much different. Oil packaging is built the same, pretty much, north and south of the border. The problems are very similar. It's all about scale and convenience.
Well, when you think about it, I guess for the listeners, can you break down a little bit of what the Canadian model look like in a way, and then how does that translate to the US? It might be apples to apples, it might be oranges to apple. I mean, slightly different. I mean, is it, what does it look like up there compared to what it is now down here?
Yeah, it's never exactly the same. I mean, a really good point that you can't just cookie cutter this and slap it in place and say you're going to get the same results. It obviously had to be a very adaptive. One of the unique things that's happening in Canada that's not happening in the US is that the liquid is being required to be taken back by Interchange Recycling Canada, as well as the packaging. Whereas in the US, it's really heavily focused on the packaging for now. There are some household hazardous waste laws that are being put in place that do require the liquid, the fluid, to be collected and recycled. Vermont's the example in the U.S., but that's very new. But so the big difference was we're focused on packaging collection in the U.S., whereas in Canada we were focused on the liquid collection and the packaging that came along with that.
So on the liquid side, are we just talking like used motor oil type stuff from Jiffy
Yeah,
Lube, or are we talking the de minimis amounts of oil left in the empty container? What are we talking about here?
We're talking both.
Really?
So it's in the Canadian program where there's a requirement to have the liquid collected at Mr. Lube's or Jiffy Lube's or institutional places, or even from consumers to have consumer collection depots. All the liquid is collected. Most of the time that's brought back by consumers in the original container and decanted or poured into the tank. And then there's that empty container there with still quite a bit of oil left in it. Everybody knows those things you hold them upside down, they drip forever. And so we have processes and procedures to get that oil out as well. So in the US, we're obviously very focused on the packaging and the residual oil that's left in that packaging. But there are market-based programs for motor oil collection all across the US. And we tend to find out where those are and we want to put our packaging collection bin right beside the tank. It's keep the distance as minimal as possible. So as soon as someone's done with that container, it goes straight into the tank, into our recycling bin, and the oil can get removed and the plastic recycled.
That's great. That's awesome. When you look at, say, the financial blueprint of the program, talk about the funding an EPR program from the ground up requires a lot of serious capital. I got to imagine. How exactly is the major oil companies funding this structure? Where they're paying up front to launch fees, or is this a model driven entirely by ongoing volume-based eco fees? I mean, how does this work in the US?
It's a little both. And we are using the incentive-based model we use in Canada and applying it in the US because there's an existing marketplace. We don't necessarily need to buy trucks and send them around picking up this stuff. We can incentivize the current marketplace to do that. But the way that the funding works for the founding members and any participants that join on since then, there was a little bit of startup money kicked in by each of those companies to get it going. But then we quickly moved towards volume-based fees. And so it depends on how much product you're putting on the marketplace. There's a reporting system and a fee based on volume you're putting on the marketplace. So per gallon fee is what we focus on. And that helps spread the startup costs across the entire industry, and is designed to fund the startup and the startup collection of these containers.
So in the US, maybe kind of let's talk about how does it work? I mean, you've got, like, say for instance, an auto parts store. They a lot of times will take the used oil from people who do their own oil changes, right? I mean, they're like, hey, we got a container, bring it in. All right. So at that point, you've got a 55-gallon drum of used oil there at the shop, and maybe you got a few of them there. At that point, there's going to be a collection process. Is there a fee assigned to that at that point when the pickup happens by some other provider who's recycling the oil at the bigger oil recycling location? I mean, where does this all fit? I mean, just kind of understanding the process here.
Yeah, yeah. No, all the funding comes at point of sale, so it's all done well
Okay.
before the consumer, say, brings it back to the auto shop in the example you're using there. So you can imagine at the back of an auto retailer where they want that customer to come back into the store, and they've offered this great service to their customers to bring back your used oil, and we'll sell you new motor oil. And they do that by taking it back in the original container. They'll pour it into the tank, and then right now, before this program got started, they were taking that container and putting it in the garbage bin because there wasn't a recycling program for it.
Right.
And then we work with companies to provide the incentive, the trucking companies that already are probably going to that same auto retailer. We give them the extra incentive to pick up the packaging as well as the oil. So whether or not they can fit that all in the same truck, it's up to them. Sometimes there's a box truck with a 55-gallon drum of filters. Sometimes they're taking, and then they'll be able to take bags of containers. Sometimes there's a pump. They pump the oil into smaller tanks within a truck. So there's all different kinds of model there. But we're the ones that are working with. We want to work with the existing marketplace. We don't want to disrupt their customer base too much. So whatever company is probably picking up the oil at that facility, we want to give them the right incentive, the financial incentive, to also pick up the packaging, bring it back, consolidate it, and whether or not they are then processing it into recycled material or sending it on to one of their partners to process and recycled material. And then ideally, it's coming back as new motor oil packaging.
So, like, for instance, in that packaging of plastic, recycling that, do you guys get directly involved with partners to help, be the source, the people who recycle that? I mean, and do you set up contracts with those guys to do the recycling, or is it some other internal, like, down the line chain of events of?
We do it. No, we do that exact business. We need this. In order to hit the outcomes and the targets, recycling targets we have to hit by state, we need to provide the trucking and the recycling company with the right incentive to do it. We don't do that ourselves. We provide incentives into the existing marketplace. We don't own brick and mortar. We don't own trucks. We are in very much a dollar and data organization, and we need to report back into government what was collected and what was recycled. But we do that through partners, and we do that through monitoring the marketplace and making sure we're providing the right incentive so that we get the right outcome.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, Interchange 360s often describes itself as a necessary release valve for the state of recycling systems. Why is it that it's so dangerous to let automotive plastic mix with the household curbside recycling? And how does your specialized mission protect the broader food grade plastic streams?
Yeah, it's a really good question. As we talked about the residual inside the motor oil bottles, and that creates nothing but mess inside the curbside program. Either the curbside program restricts it or takes it and then manages at their detriment the material inside the curbside. They'd rather not do that. They usually restrict it and send it to send it to depot or somehow send it to another collection system. But the residual container, the oil can contaminate the other material in there. It's also, there's lots of commercial collection. If a household wants to take back its oil, they have it, often they have they fill up their old container to the top. You can't put that in the curbside program. So we need to give these other options for people to properly and conveniently recycle motor oil containers.
Oh, yeah. We talk a little bit about, I think, what you've been kind of designing as these alternative collection programs. I mean, I think that's been like the big secret sauce of your business. And so, to bypass traditional curbside bins, you've relied on these ACPs, as you call them, for an everyday consumer or a local mechanic shop, what does an ACP physically look like, and how do you ensure that these collection points are accessible?
Yeah. There's lots of words for it, but essentially it's an alternative to curbside. And
Yeah.
that's what it really is. Because curbside program does not work for this material. It works everywhere in the world where there's a successful curbside program. There's a successful release valve or ACP or whatever you want to call it, a successful alternative to curbside, whether that be through a retailer, whether that be through a publicly accessible depot or some other means. But yeah, that's what we focus on. We don't do curbside for this material. It doesn't make sense. But yeah.
So what does that look like for you guys? Is that like basically saying, hey, we've got a disposal location at the AutoZone on 5th Street, and that's where we collect it. So everyone, send your stuff there. Or over at the recycle yard, we've got a separate bin for all these oil, plastics, and antifreeze bottles or something, whatever. How are you doing it? Like that, basically?
Yeah, that, you nail on the head. Maybe you should have my job, I think. You know how to run this. But we have to find the places that are where the generation points are. If we put our collection places too far away from the generator, we're not going to be convenient. We're not going to be able to collect it. What we'd love to do, though, is set up a model where if you can go to our website, you can punch in your address or wherever you want to recycle. I'll pop all the options in your area, including, a finder and a distance tool to be able to punch it right into your phone and take you by directions to this collection point. We really like working with multi-material collection points. So like the depots that have other products like paint or other, aerosols or something like that, like products like that. That's where we like to work, those one-stop shops.
That's good, because can you also on your website request to have a service location added, or because there's a lot of places out there probably could use these locations?
I'm glad you're asking that, because that is a big part of our role, is to sign up locations that want to take back stuff from the public. We call them public depots or return collection facilities, but that can be a government run depot, that could be an auto retailer like you mentioned, but we're always looking for new places in areas where we need them. And we have sign-up sheets on our website for anybody that wants to sign up and take that material. And we'll incentivize them as well by providing infrastructure, whether it be bins or bags or signage or whatever you need to make it work for you.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great. I'm going to just take a quick moment to take a break here and recognize our sponsors of the podcast. And before I do, I want to make sure everyone shares and likes this interview. If you're getting a lot out of this interview so far, please share it with your friends. And we'll be right back after this short message. Hello, ET Nation. I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're enjoying the interviews we bring you, consider supporting the program by visiting my website at SeanKGrady.com and buy me a cup of coffee. Proceeds will go towards helping me continue producing timely content and offset production costs. I'd also like to take a moment and recognize a few of our sponsors of the show who have been amazing partners and are ET Nation legends. If you're looking for a drilling and environmental contracting firm to help you delineate the extent of contamination at your site, then look no further than Cascade Environmental. Cascade has over 37 offices across the country and offers a huge range of environmental and geotechnical drilling, site characterization, and remediation services. With their huge fleet of equipment and nationwide coverage, Cascade is a great choice to support your environmental and infrastructure needs. To learn more, check out their website at cascade-env.com. That's cascade-env.com. Hey, are you looking for an equipment rental company to help you with your next wastewater remediation or waste management project? E-Tank is the only environmental equipment rental company in the industry that offers 100% guaranteed, certified clean temporary liquid storage tanks at no additional cost. This protocol gives peace of mind for the previous customer by limiting their downstream liability, as well as the future customer by preventing any cross-contamination for all of their rental tanks. E-Tank also runs a one-of-a-kind complete maintenance program for all rental items, including liquid-tight roll-off containers, fluid transfer pumps, and filtration items. The next time you are presented with an environmental challenge, call E-Tank to come up with the solution for your problem. I want to thank one of our sponsors, WasteLink. WasteLink is the all-in-one software platform transforming how environmental professionals manage waste, connecting generators, service providers, and disposal facilities in a way that is simple, connected, and transparent. Their platform helps streamline everything from waste profiling and routing to inventory management and billing, giving you the tools you need to operate more efficiently and reduce cost. Whether you're a generator looking for better options or a service provider seeking greater efficiency, WasteLink has you covered. If you're ready to take control of your waste management processes and optimize your business, visit wastelink.com to schedule a demo today. Okay, we're back at it. Hey, so the Interchange 360 recently locked in major regulatory approvals in states like Colorado and Washington. How do your organizations differ between a state like Washington, or I'm sorry, not your organization, your operations differ between a state like Washington or, some other location, and how to balance the different programs, I guess, that you implement with these different rules?
I mean, that is the magic, is we want it to be the same everywhere we can. So the experience we have is working with whatever law is out there. We can deliver a harmonized, consistent program to the public and to our members. So it doesn't really matter. Right now, it doesn't really matter how different the law is in Colorado, to how different it is in Washington, to how different it might be in Maine or Maryland. We can deliver this program exactly the same across the country, so every citizen in the country has a consistent experience, and we can use that, the same tools and processes everywhere. So we're very efficient and can keep fees down for our members and consumers.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's nice to have a little flexibility, but also consistency across all the states too, right? Because I'm sure you have to have a little flexibility for both and to address each state's concerns. But, every state's passing an EPR law, it seems like these days, and to write its own unique rule book regarding targets and penalties. How are you designing Interchange 360's infrastructure so that the petroleum brands, doesn't have a negative 50, or have to navigate 50 entirely different compliance systems?
Yeah, that is one of the key outcomes we want, especially for our members. You can think about, the big five that we have. They want a single reporting portal for all states that they have to comply in. So we've built up that single reporting portal. We've kept the definitions as similar as we can. And of course, there'll be different fees eventually across the country, depending on what the costs are in those states. But as much as we can do to keep it as consistent as possible for our members, to make it easy for them to comply in states where the laws aren't always the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are still just trying to wrap their head around EPR.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's like EPR, extended producer responsibility. What is that? What does that mean? It's like, and I think there's still an education that goes in just for that topic alone, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in the startup 2 years we've been doing this, especially on the industry side. There's been a ton of education. There's a ton of webinars we've provided, one-on-one conversations, events, all that kind of stuff. Just explaining, like, what does this mean for your business? Because what is a producer? Who is the producer? That's not always easy to do and is defined differently by state. But this is our role, is to find the common language that is meaningful to the industry, meaningful to consumers, meaningful to the collection and recycling industry too. So finding that common language that works for everybody when it's not always built that way in each state. So it's been a real journey. Extended producer responsibility it's a policy that's been around for a long time, but it's new to the U.S. And so the work that we're doing and others to sort of explain what it means and how do you function within an EPR state.
Now, are you seeing that some of these producers view the EPR programs and rules as an opportunity to create a new circular economy business that they can participate in?
Yeah, it varies greatly. You can just imagine the range of producers, and some are forward thinking and thinking about the circular economy and how they might be able to benefit from it. Others are, still in the linear stages and still in the early stages of understanding EPR or not believing these requirements will apply to them. And so it's a real range of education that we do. But certainly, I know the companies that we're working for They are looking at circularity as a business opportunity for sure. They anticipate, and some of the states have put in eco-modulation rules, which, this is an interesting topic within EPR, but it's essentially the state putting environment requirements onto packaging producers and requiring us to set fees that are reflective of the environmental benefit of those changes. There's also post-consumer recycling content, and then this is going to be a big one for sure. Requirements for hitting post-consumer recycling content. It's another reason why this industry wants to work separate from the curbside collection program. We believe if we collect this material separately, control the management of it, we can send this material right back to our member producers, and they can more easily hit the PCR, post-consumer recycling content requirements as well.
Yeah, like a closed loop almost recycling program. I mean, we buy the plastic from you guys to make the bottles, and then the bottles are made and filled in, and then they get recycled. They go back to the same people and make the plastic, and then it's a closed loop. I mean, that would be great in an ideal world, and I'm sure that does take effect or does actually happen in certain circumstances. But I think capturing more of that would be an ideal business opportunity.
I mean, that is our design. That is our plan. It just takes volume to get there. So we intend, as every state gets added, we'll get closer towards that goal. Our slogan is compliance and circularity.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Well, when we're talking about this, creating a true circular economy means you can't work in a vacuum. What kind of partnerships is Interchange 360 for forging with plastic reprocessors and container manufacturers to ensure an empty motor oil jug actually gets turned back into a new motor oil jug?
Yeah, it's a great question. It takes a village, and it takes some really specialized skill set, because we're not talking about soap jugs here. We're talking about motor oil containers with the residual fluid in them. Sometimes there's a lot of fluid that needs to be managed as well, and that fluid's getting recycled as well. But there's very few specialized recyclers in this space, and it's one of the gaps we have in our circular goals is to build way more capacity across the U.S. because in many states we're starting at zero, and we're starting at 0% collection, 0% recycling for this material. That's very different than what the curbside programs are starting at. They're anywhere from 10 to 30% collection and recycling rates. We're starting at zero. That means there is no infrastructure. And so building that infrastructure from the ground up takes a lot of partnership, a lot of discussion with potential industries, and some risk taking on their end to understand their investment and where they can have a return for their investors.
I mean, I got an idea right now I'm thinking about.
Love
It's
it.
I mean, like with these big oil companies who have retail gas station sites, I mean, they ought to be having a bin on every one of their gas stations.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Have a bin, and then they have a contract with somebody like us, like me and my company, and we just go around, pick up all the stuff, and recycle it, bring it back to you. I mean, that's pretty simple.
I knew this interview was going to lead.
I solved one of your problems right now, David.
I love it, Sean. And in the Canadian programs, after a few years, that's what happens. A lot of these gas stations have bins right beside the pump, and it's really for top ups, but those bins are being sent back for recycling as well. So for example, in Canada, in British Columbia, we're over 90% of the product that's put in the marketplace is collected and recycled. That's an astounding number. And that's the number that's amazing. That's the number that really gets the attention of state staff when we say we can do this better and we have results that we can point to. And they're like, okay, give you an ACP, give you an independent program. Let's see you go do it. Because if we don't have this stuff, we don't have this independent program from Curbside, it's just going to continue to go to garbage.
I mean, there's other I mean, think of the military, the government. I mean, there's all kinds of people that could use an ACP pretty easily. I mean, and it's all for the proper environmental initiatives that they all, say they commit to. So it would be perfect.
Yeah, it fits right up their environmental goals, and all those institutions you mentioned are already probably recycling oil, motor oil. So it's all really shelf ready. It just takes this connection to a plastics recycling entity.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. So historically, post-consumer resin from automotive fluids has been heavily downcycled and discarded due to chemical contamination. And we've been talking about this. It's like, you get that type of plastic with oil stuff is not the ideal plastic. But if it's segmented out and it's reused for that same purpose, then it doesn't need to be downcycled. What specific technology or logistical partnerships are you leveraging to close loop this type of, oil impacted plastic?
Yeah, it's a great question, because in order to hit our circular goals, we have to keep the circle really tight, right? We need to work within our existing industry. The ideal solution is taking, like you say, motor oil packaging, a gallon of motor oil that's been, the oil's out of it, there's still a little residual there. What we see really successful for processing technology is pretty simple, actually. Whereas a bottle that's got a HDPE bottle, so a plastic bottle, your very common motor oil jug, has still quite a bit of motor oil in there. But if you run it through a shredder and then put it through a centrifuger, spin it really fast, heat it up just a tiny bit, a ton of oil comes, not a ton, but a
lot.
of
Like
oil.
a valuable
lot of oil.
amount.
It's always surprising when I bring elected officials to our facilities to show them how much oil comes out of shredded plastic.
Right.
And so a little bit of heat, a little bit of spinning, and that oil comes out, that oil gets recycled. Now that plastic is ready for the post-consumer market. And lots of times, it can't go into food grade stuff, and we want to direct it back into another motor oil bottle, but it can also be sent, once the oil is out of it enough, it really depends on the customer specifications, but it can get made into all kinds of products, plant pots, all kinds of products.
Yeah, decking.
Decking, even specialized molding stuff.
Yeah.
Some of those customers, some of the specs like a little bit of viscosity in their plastic. It goes through their moldings better. It goes through their center. Trying to get the name. The pelletizers better.
Yeah.
So some people like it.
Well, that's good. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of this, I got to imagine EPR for a lot of the producers at some point have some trepidation in this whole concept. They're like, when does the liability ever stop? I mean, like, we make this stuff and now they're bringing us back in, right? It's like,
yeah.
So do you ever have interesting conversations with producers in that, and within that kind of concept or conversation, discussion?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. And that is part of the, the education continuum. And you have producers that all, like I mentioned, producers at all different stages of learning this stuff. And it's a continuous conversation. That's all I can say. And everyone's at a different spot. Some people just don't like it at all, and it's extra cost to the business, and they're not seeing the environmental benefits of it, and think this stuff should be managed through local government programs that they pay taxes into right now. So, I mean, it's a fair argument to ask for that, but in order to hit our environmental objectives, it's got to be managed in this way.
Yeah, because the oils piece of it is the challenge. But I mean, I guess there's other petroleum related products too that could fall into that. I think that the success of Interchange 360 is got, a lot of publicity a bit too, but can this same type of a program be applied to other types of EPR plastic recycling solutions? Say, for instance, like the cosmetic industry, the pharmaceutical industry, or, I mean, can this same type of a program be applied in other ways?
Yeah.
That could be beneficial. I can just think of like detergent bottles that you have at home. I mean, they look just like the darn bottles I buy with petroleum oil in them too, right? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not the only organization or sector in need of a release valve, but I would say detergent bottles are fine in the Curbside program. They can get managed there. They're fairly clean. But like you mentioned, cosmetics, paint, pharmaceuticals, pesticides. I mean, there's a lot here, and there's other programs, around the country for those things. The paint program is probably the one that's mostly aligned with us. Paint Care, they've been running for a number of years. Yeah. But there's also a voluntary program around pesticide container management as well that the farmers run. So there's lots of like programs like us that need niche solutions. We love to work with other companies because we can get efficiencies together and save costs. We love to do that. Sometimes it's the same recycling company. Sometimes it's working together on public collection. But there's others just like us that for anything that doesn't make sense in the Curbside program, this is why we're advocating or asking states or providing examples to states that if you're going to build a law that is extended producer responsibility, Don't do the super pro. Don't require one pro. Allow these release valves. So organizations like ours with harder to recycle products that don't fit so well in the curbside program can very easily develop its own compliance program. It's not like we're trying to get out of the law, but we're simply trying to comply in a way that's more, has a better outcome. We can recycle this stuff. We're not trying to get away from that. We think we can do it more efficiently if we do it separately.
As the is part of the mission of Interchange 360 to go and do advocacy at state level for various states that are contemplating EPR rules?
Yeah, I want to be very careful here because we're a 501c3 and 6, and so we're not a lobbying company, but we certainly like to spread the message and show what a good model can deliver in the right environment, in the right circumstance, and that tends to be where there is multiple pros allowed. If you have a single pro and force everything into one size fit all system, you're not going to get recycling of the hard to recycle stuff. You're going to get that curbside program that's got to hit its targets as it goes, and of course they're going to focus on the easy to recycle stuff to get there. So the harder to recycle stuff like motor oil packaging, it's going to be a long off objective, and for many years going to continue to go to landfill. And that's not what our organizations want. We want to take that responsibility, be accountable for it, and recycle it.
Well, I mean, there's still great value, and I mean, just like you talked about centrifuging out the residual of a lot of empty oil containers. I mean, that oil is not used; it's actual still good product, and you can be sold as maybe not the exact same virgin, but it's basically the same, but maybe just a discounted version of it. I don't know. I mean, there's still value in that material.
Absolutely. That oil that comes out of the centrifuged plastics, we're sending that back to a re-refinery right now, and it's showing up on a shelf somewhere near you. You just don't know it.
Yeah, and you're probably getting a premium for that too, because they don't have to do extra processing with it.
Yeah, it's certainly a different business model for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great. Behavioral changes are always a challenge to get people to change their mindset about this. We know that getting consumers to drop off hazardous packaging is vastly harder than getting them to toss it to a blue curbside bin. What's the biggest behavioral bottleneck that you face when trying to hit these ambitious container collection targets?
Yeah, that's a great point because people are people, right? And so convenience is king. It really is. Make it simple and people will recycle. And
Yeah.
I like to think positively here that most people want to recycle if it's not too difficult. And so
Yeah.
if we can keep it simple, explain it, make it convenient, that people will recycle. And we're finding that's how we're hitting our high numbers in British Columbia, keeping it simple, not trying to over explain it, making these facilities really convenient wherever they're generating the material, and then we can hit the high numbers. Lots of organizations overcomplicate this and think there's some magic formula to getting people to recycle more. Really, it's just simple communication and convenience.
So think about like deploying a program for somebody and like, hey, we'll set out a collection bin for you guys. Just give us a call, let us know where it's at, and then we'll put it on our schedule for once a month pickup or whatever. Are you delivering like a design specified container type, solution for people? They don't have to think about it. It's like, hey, we'll drop it off. We'll have a pickup scheduled. I mean, is it that simple for these people if they want it that simple?
It can be. I mean, we know that you can't do the same thing for everybody. So we do need to have several different packages working with our partners to make sure that space is an issue inside some retail spots. And so
Sure.
they can't take big containers. They need small containers. We need to have all that shelf ready to be able to provide the catalog of opportunities because not everybody's the same, and
Right.
and match the what we have, what we know works with what the facility needs.
So you have options. You
You
have
have
container
options.
management options.
Signage is a big thing too.
Oh, that's a
Everybody
good
needs
top.
a
Oh, that's
little.
good. Yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought that up.
everyone needs a little bit different signage, and so we've got all kinds of different packages to make this work.
Yeah, I can remember matter of fact, I was in Paris in the subway waiting to catch a train. And there's these big signs on the subway wall, the posters everywhere, all kinds of different posters. But the one was I could recall was like this little aluminum can, and then it had wings on it. And it was just kind of floating in the air. And there was a trash can over here. And it was like, hey, it doesn't get in the trash can by itself. You got to throw it in there. And it was this constant reminder of, recycling and that education and just keeping it in the forefront of people's minds that, hey, we want to proactively recycle as a society. Yeah, that kind of education and signage is important.
Absolutely. I love our communications and marketing team. I mean, they get so creative with this stuff, keeping it as simple as possible. The example you just mentioned, there's not a lot of words there. It's a very simple message, but it is effective. And so, I love the way our communication marketing team works on this stuff. They develop the similar messages, and I laugh all the time when I see them because they're obviously, they got to be cute and funny enough to get
Yeah,
your attention, right?
catchy,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm always
memorable.
challenging them for the next best one, and they're saying, "What about what we did last time?" And then they're you got to always
Yeah.
keep evolving and keep doing new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, geez, with memes these days, you could get really creative with a bunch of memes.
Yeah, online media, social media, you have to use
Yeah.
all mechanisms to get out, whether it's bus signage or TV ads or all that stuff.
That's good. That's good. Well, that's good to see that and hear that you've got a catalog of container types and signage for people who want to deploy these types of systems. It's not really difficult to do. Now, are there contractual agreements these guys have to sign up to, or people have to sign up to when they get set up and order with you guys that create a collection system for? I mean, how does that work?
We try to keep this as simple as possible. I know these, people aren't going to sign up if it's if I show up at a facility and bring out the contract and it rolls out,
Here's your contract. It's evergreen,
across.
by the way.
Yeah, 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 all that kind of. We'll never have success doing that stuff. So
Right,
we keep
right.
it as simple as possible. We got a 2-page sign-up sheet with system terms, especially if we're going to give you infrastructure. We want to make sure that that's transferred properly and the ownership on that is properly documented. But we try and keep it as simple as possible. Other people are going to sign up for this stuff.
Now, is there like a payback fee for these guys at that point? Is how they set this up from a contracting perspective, or do they pay up front to do this, or how does that part work? Or is this just like, hey, put something on the site and you can collect away type thing? I mean, how does that
Yeah.
work for them?
Well,
What's
it
the
really
incentive?
depends. Yeah, it really depends what you're talking about. Maybe we'll just pick an example of an AutoZone or something like that.
Yeah.
However, they're already taking back the oil. Right now, they're taking that container after the consumer brings it in, put the oil in the tank, and putting that container in the garbage. They're now paying a cost to get rid of that garbage. We are now providing them with free pickup, so they're offsetting that cost, not having to pay the garbage cost. So that's a benefit for them right away. We'll look to provide, working with our partners, to give them the equipment they need to be able to collect that stuff and make sure it's there ready for one of our contracted trucks or incentivized trucks to come pick it up. So it's small things, but typically it's the companies that already have a recycling ethic or are already in tune with what their customers want to see here
Mhm.
that tend to sign up with us.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's good. I love it. I love it. That's good. Well, looking ahead to your target of 44% of national collection rate for automotive containers by 2030. Now, I got this off your website, so that's a big statement, I think, right? Is that accurate?
Well, I think you're talking about Colorado, and that's the requirement
Oh,
in
it's in
Colorado.
Colorado? That could be in
Yeah, and
Colorado.
that's our first
Okay.
program in Colorado. So yeah, we got to hit these high numbers that Colorado have regulated, and especially when you're, not like the curbside program, which has a starting point of the 20s. We're starting from zero, but given how we've hit high numbers in elsewhere, we're going to do our
You think
darndest to
it's
get to that
achievable? You
number.
think it's achievable, huh?
Yeah.
What does an ideal American recycling ecosystem look like for the petroleum industry, and what happens to companies that choose to opt out of this framework?
Well, companies, it's a requirement of law, so there's no opting out of the requirement in the state. There's in Colorado, if a company wants to do their own program, they're welcome to go do that and collect and recycle their own stuff. That's an option in the Colorado program. We believe, though, that the efficient way to do this is to have all these companies work under one umbrella, not send multiple trucks around on the street or to suppliers, but
Mhm.
simply work in the system that's more efficient to work together. So the optimal environment means having there's really a mix and vary of different recycling options for small businesses, for residents, and that we're providing service in the rural areas and the urban areas, everywhere in between. We're serving the agriculture community, the mining community, the gas stations, the lube shops, as you mentioned. It's really having that sort of big cast net that makes sure nothing gets through. And this is how we're going to hit our numbers.
I love it. Well, I mean, I think you're well on your way. The strategy sounds pretty sound. I love the container collection concept and the network you're trying to deploy. What's been the rate of adoption that you can see in Colorado for, all of these, like, say, for instance, are all the farm co-ops, signing up to put these things in their service locations, and, the tractor supply places. And I mean, like, what are you seeing across the board in Colorado at this point?
Yeah. We're deliberately moving slowly. And that is so we don't overwhelm the system in the early days. I mean, the difficult step is going from 0% to 1%. Once we get to one, I think it's easy to get to 10, 20, 30. But going from 0 to one, because once we get all collection is just one thing, but getting that stuff processed, the bigger step is processing capacity. And so we have 4 processors signed up in Colorado, all of them at different stages of development. Some are far away, and we will be transporting at a lot of cost to send this stuff to existing providers. We don't necessarily want to do that because for the cost, but also the environmental problem of transporting a long ways. Ideally, we're setting up a processor in Colorado that can turn this material back into new recycled material, but that takes a little bit of time. So we can't get too far ahead of ourselves so we are slow playing the public message around collection a bit, and slow playing getting our depots collected, because the last thing you want to do is have these collection points overwhelmed early and have no place to take the material once it's collected. So we want to make sure we're very smart here, and we are strategic in how we are starting up the program. Like I say, going from 0 to 1 is way more difficult than going from 1 to 10, 20, 30.
So you're right now working through establishing your plastic recycling network within Colorado, essentially.
Yeah, and that'll be the pull system. Well, at the same time, we're signing up a lot of, in Colorado, what I really like is the household hazardous waste network, and the counties have these facilities all across Colorado. They're already collecting oil and antifreeze and other paint and pesticides, all kinds of materials. Those are jewels for us to work with, and so those are our first targets. Retailers as well, we want to be working with, and we, in some areas there is no location, so we're going to probably work with the county to come up with what I call roundups or events, and work with them on their existing events to have collection in place there. So it's really a mix. And in the first year, I mean, we're really 6 months into the launch here. We just got to be patient, and the state's been fantastic, and they've been patient as well, because they really understand that we're going from zero. Going from zero is a huge task, and I've said it a few times here, but going from zero is a huge task. I always say the Curbside program is easy because they already got 20 years of a kickstart. We're starting from scratch.
Are some of the existing kind of curbside recycling companies that do plastic recycling, are they also an option for you guys, or is it because they're doing household only, they really can't do the petroleum recycling plastic?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd love to see more of those companies get interested in this harder to recycle stuff, but their business models are, I don't mean this in a negative way, but their business models are built around clean, easy to manage curbside stuff. So right. I joke, and when I go to events, that you guys keep doing the easy stuff. If you ever want to, challenge yourself, come on this side of the fence and deal with hard to recycle. But many of them are, they built up their trucks, they built up their collection system, they built up their employee knowledge and network on easy to recycle stuff. Continue to do that well. And then at the same time, make sure you're directing traffic our way that needs to be directed our way. So don't tell people to put the petroleum packaging in the garbage place. Direct them our way, please. And we'll do the same thing with our products, that people don't need to go into our program, likely are better in the curbside program. Well, let's direct traffic together. And that's one of the things we're doing in Colorado with the curbside program there, is making sure that we're giving people the options. What I hate to see is the public communication that goes out and it's got check marks on it, recycle this, and then it's got a whole bunch of X's. We don't want that. We want all those X's to be arrows, and we want to direct people into the.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So still have a little bit of groundwork, it sounds like, to do to develop the infrastructure, is what I'm kind of hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And purposely going slow on this so we don't overwhelm the system, crash the system in the early years. We've got decades to go here, right? So this is not something that's going to start and stop. We need to make sure we build it right and build it so it can survive.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, David, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time today. If I've got a listener who's like, man, I need to talk to David, I got an opportunity, or our state's getting ready to implement something and I want to talk to Interchange 360, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Interchange 360 is our website. You can get me through that. Look me up on LinkedIn too. I'm available there.
Well, we'll make sure we put your contact information on the website and on the podcast website page. And as we promote the podcast here shortly, you'll be tagged and we'll circulate it and cross-pollinate social media and all that good stuff. So it'll be fun.
Excellent, Sean. Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet, man. I really appreciate you coming on and explaining to us what you guys are doing with Interchange 360. It's great.
Yeah, fun time.
Thanks for listening and watching the show. If you enjoyed the show, then please share it with your friends and coworkers on social media and tell somebody in person. Thanks for being with us, ET Nation.